Great. Welcome. We're just waiting for more people to join us, and then we will start. Just talking to Jeff. I think it's how are you feeling? How are you in the lockdown? How are you?
We are good. We are struggling in the lockdown, but so is everyone. So I guess we just have to follow the rules and abide by the rules to survive.
Yeah.
You either break the rules and end up not making it across, or abide and hopefully see it through.
Hopefully we will. Hi, Tina. Thank you for joining. Good evening. Good evening, everyone. We are in our week, I think, of lockdown, and we're doing well, following the rules and staying safe, which is good.
Staying indoors.
Hi, Elizabeth. Hello. Great. I think we're just going to start and we'll shoot off. We won't be here for too long. I just want to introduce to everyone Jeff Madzingo of Diaspora Insurance. And the CEO of Diaspora Insurance and the UK-wide insurance company. So thank you so much for coming in tonight and just spending some time with us. Welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah, we've had a special request for you from some women who've been inboxing and saying we had a lady talk about insurance, but we want a man as well.
Oh, that's good. That's good.
To represent the men. So that's great.
No, that's good. We hope the men can listen in as well and buy into the issue, to the concept of insurance.
So, today, I don't know if you've seen the news that what do you think of this? That UK has become, our death toll in the UK is 29,427, which is the highest in Europe. And so that's come out as a shock. Why do you think that is?
It's probably first, before I come in, I would just want to say hello to everyone tuned in, and also to pay our respects to those some of us who have been caught up in this pandemic, those who died, and those who are in hospital recovering. We want to wish them all the best, and to take this opportunity to pay our respects to those families who lost their loved ones. It's quite a shocking number, really a shocking number, and a shocking statistic. It's not too long ago when we started counting cases. There's so many people, hundreds, 1,000, so many, and before we realize we are on the top of the chain, really, in terms of the numbers, which is really shocking. And unfortunately, it's not a statistic that we can say we can be proud of. It's something that we had always hoped to avoid as UK, to say end up being the worst affected country in Europe. But this is where we are now. In terms of why it would ended up in this situation, I'm sure there is a lot of factors that will come into play. But I remember for certain when in February we were working from South Africa, and when we came in, the issue of COVID was already quite pronounced globally. And I was shocked that we just walked in at the airport at Heathrow, not even checking the temperature. In South Africa, when we went to South Africa, because we've got a call center in South Africa, where people were being screened on arrival, checking the temperature. Even in Zimbabwe, they were screening people temperature. But when we came back into the UK, nothing was happening. Completely nothing. Like there's no issue at all. So I think there was an element of underestimating the impact of this whole COVID virus initially, and too many cases were allowed in. And I saw in the news they were talking about too many people coming in from hotspots like Italy, Spain, before China, before UK started to be serious about screening.
Yeah.
So,
and even our lockdown was quite relaxed, compared to other countries.
Yeah. I remember initially when we did the lockdown, because we ran a fairly big call center in the Birmingham City Center. When we did the lockdown, it was more like voluntary, really. It wasn't like it's compulsory. No, it's now a complete lockdown.
Yeah.
And it was like companies were voluntarily locking down or slowing down or trying to set up people to work from home.
Yeah.
So even at our office complex, when we eventually capacitated all the team members to work from home, we left some people still there working, and no one was telling people to say no more.
Yeah.
So it's really the way the things were structured, the way things were managed. But I suppose we are in completely uncharted waters and uncharted territories. So
because China perhaps as well didn't give us proper information. They didn't share the information and for us to see the big magnitude. Because I think at that time they were saying there's 3,000 something deaths in China, which obviously it wasn't true. But we also perhaps as England, maybe that made other countries relax a bit, delay it, bringing down, putting in countries into lockdown. So it's been quite uncharted, extraordinary times. And
I think it's been quite extraordinary and uncharted waters, because when you are caught up in situations like this, you would say, when was the last time the world ever experienced something like this? When was the last pandemic? You find that it was probably confined to certain regions, to certain areas. It wasn't probably on a global scale like this COVID virus. And a lot of authorities, I think, were found in situations where they were second guessing. Is this going to explode? Is this not going to explode? What do we do now? Are we overreacting? Are we not overreacting? You lock down, nothing happens, and you try to balance to find the equilibrium between being too assertive or be pressing the panic button when then nothing ends up happening. So it's very, very difficult to predict what will happen.
It is.
You see with the Excel where they did the Nightingale Hospital.
That's what I was
with capacity of 4,000 people, 4,000 beds, and since it's opened, it has only admitted about 51 or so people.
And they haven't. I mean, they said in the news yesterday that they were actually closing.
Yeah, they said they were just working on. They were still on the first ward. So
yeah.
But you then can't then say that the money invested in that preparing was wasted money. No. If things had gone the other way, it could have easily been not enough capacity.
Yeah.
So
I'm sorry.
Yeah, but that's the really sad thing is that most of the death ended up affecting the ethnic minorities, the BMEs, and we are caught up in this situation now where you find yourself, for all the other disadvantages you have in life as BMEs, you also find a pandemic comes and
and
the whole fantasy or fallacy about saying, oh, it doesn't affect black people. I don't know whether that ended up being a factor, but it looks like
in Africa, there are not as many deaths as they predicted so far. But then here, we're finding that the BMEs proportionally are the ones who they're more
they're more affected,
the Black people and Asian and and I think there's been a lot of discussion about why that is. What's your opinion about that?
It's very difficult unless there's medical evidence or research, scientific evidence of why that is happening. But I think it became quickly apparent way before we even realized it was getting so negatively skewed against the BMEs. I think when people started realizing in America that, this disease is actually very, very negative when it comes to the number of blacks proportionate to the whites which were being affected. But as to why really that became the case, whether it's a case of just the general well-being or the general exclusion or from some of these health facilities, or the nature of our lifestyles, or the nature of our immune systems as Black people, it's not something that can be categorically said to say this is the reason. But I suppose what it becomes apparent and what becomes very important is that the authorities really need to go back to the drawing board and set up some inquiries as to why this happened, and so that future trends, we don't want, it's very sad when a trend like this ends up affecting the least advantaged in the society, because you end up just being like, you feel like you're just being on the receiving end all the time. So
all the time,
where is the justice? So
And
I'm sure globally, I'm sure there will be push globally for investigations as to why this ended up happening, and so that we can at least pinpoint to say. So,
yeah, there's an investigation going on. I think they're doing some research. But also, I think most of the frontline workers are people from BME communities in health, in bus drivers, supermarkets, in London. And I think some of the things that they are saying as well is the high density of people, that people live intergenerationally, they live together.
Yeah, I think it could be there could be aspects of those as well. The way most ethnic minority people, because we tend to be more communal in our setups, and our family structures are more communal than an average white person, where it's more individualistic, and whereas with Black and ethnic minorities, Asians, you may find maybe 3 generations under the same roof.
Yeah.
And it doesn't happen that often with the white people. So, but I think it's much more complex. It's, yes, there would be a lot of, because when things like this happen, it also tended to affect areas where opportunities, because of the nature of the fields, social work, nursing, medical, you find the care industry. There's a lot of opportunities for the BMEs as well, which again, when you are at the front line and this is happening, you find yourself really on the receiving end of the negative impact of the whole thing. But I would say still that it does not. It's all, you can say it's all speculative, subjective, but ultimately there's need to do a proper research as to why things like that end up affecting the ethnic minorities more.
No, that's true. Yeah. And I think I wanted to just find out as well from you, and to just tell, like I said, we've had a request from the women that you would come and speak about some of the insurances for the men, not just for them, but some of the work, because I'm sure, I don't know if you guys have had a lot of claims during this period, and perhaps you could tell us a little bit more about the work that you do and the insurance, what's available to help people from Diaspora Insurance.
Yeah, I would start by saying I want really to point this out, and to encourage men, especially men from ethnic minority groups, Blacks, Asians. I sometimes look at insurance as if something was to happen to you and you are properly insured, it's the fastest way you can break the chain of poverty for your family or for your future generations. Insurance works, and I can't underline or emphasize that enough. I've had to deal with the situations of claims where people have had their mortgages paid off. I've had to deal with situations of claims where people, if they are most dignified send off done because the insurance is available to support them. And but unfortunately, most of the times when you deal in insurance sector, I find that women are always very receptive. I think naturally women are receptive to issues of insurance, issues of family protection, and being worried about what would be. But what we tend to find with most black men, I think there's this element of invincibility, which ends up being our which ends up being our disadvantage. That we want to say we'll deal with it when it happens. We will deal with it when it happens. But sometimes when it happens, we find ourselves really powerless and completely disarmed. And I want to emphasize the fact that men, ultimately, the protection of family is our responsibility.
Yes, isn't it?
And and our responsibility should extend to the point of saying, God forbid something was to happen to me as the breadwinner for my family. Who is going to be responsible for my family? Who is going to be responsible for my children? If you've got a mortgage, who is going to be responsible for that mortgage? Do you want the mortgage paid off, or you would rather have your family kicked out? So sometimes when you are looking at insurance, I think to put things into perspective helps a lot, because I've put it across to clients that if you are the breadwinner for your family, think of yourself as a cash machine in town, or your family is allocated a cash machine, their own cash machine. If I'm the breadwinner for my family, I'm my family's cash machine. Every month, if I earn, say, 2,000, 3,000 every month, it's like every month they can withdraw 2,000 from that cash machine. If I was a cash machine in real life, my family's biggest worry would be, what if this cash machine breaks down? What do we do? The first thing that they would do is to insure the cash machine, to make sure that if the cash machine breaks down, at least the insurance company can kick in and allow them to withdraw while the cash machine is being fixed.
Yeah.
But people never put things into perspective in that fashion, where you consider yourself to be the breadwinner. So it's completely, I wanted to talk in the eyes of many particularly, it's completely wrong and very, very irresponsible to have a situation where you are the breadwinner for your family, you've got your spouse, children, other family members who are dependent on you financially. You are the breadwinner for them, and you live without insurance. What you are simply saying, if you put things into perspective, is that if anything happens to me, I will die with my money. What happens to you, I don't care. It's a wrong attitude. It's a wrong attitude, and it will leave your family in trouble one of these days. So you always have to think that if something happens to you, if you are an engineer, if you are a social worker, if you are a nurse, if you are a doctor, if you are a teacher, if you are whatever profession, a banker, what you need to think through is that if you are earning, say, 30,000 per annum, you are earning 50,000 per annum, you are earning whatever you earn per annum, the day you die with that money. You are only able to earn that money because you are healthy and you are alive. The day you die with that money. But if you come to think it, if you are on 40,000 per annum, you try and split it to say, where does that money go? You will be surprised that quite a small portion of that money is benefiting you as an individual, because you've got financial dependence.
Isn't it? Yeah.
So those financial dependents, if you were, God forbid, something was to happen to you, they need protection. They need to be protected, and the only way you can protect them is to have insurance. And there's no circumstance that can happen, either death or incapacity, things like critical illness, unemployment. There's no eventuality which results in loss of income that you cannot insure. You can almost insure any eventuality that will affect your family's well-being. So things like life cover, things like critical illness, things like income protection, things like health insurance, you need to protect yourself, you need to protect your family, and it's very, very important. So situations where you normally would need insurance would be situations like death, where you are replacing income. You would insurance situations of serious illness where you become incapacitated and you're no longer able to work. You need to have insurance for those situations to replace income. And the two main reasons you really need things like a life cover would be income replacement. Where if you were to die, the family would need a lump sum to replace income. Then you would also need life cover for situations where you may die where at least you've got debts. You want income, you want that for debt replacement. So you wanted that for income replacement. Then you also debt redemption.
Oh, okay.
If you've got a mortgage and you die with a mortgage, you don't want your family to be kicked out. You need the insurance to come in, pay a lump sum. That lump sum then pays off the mortgage or pays off for that big car loan, and the family can keep their possessions. Because if you die with debts, your deceased estate will start by paying off all the
debts.
People you owe money. By the time your family has to get something from your estate, you may find that they've been kicked out of the house if they cannot continue to sustain the mortgage. So there are a lot of reasons why you need insurance. I've dealt with situations where people have had to have their mortgages completely paid off because of a very small premium they were paying for their mortgage. But also what you will find in our cycles as Black people and the ethnic minorities is that there's this element of what would I say, where people, you can advise and give people information, but people seem never to think that a fellow Black person can teach them something, or I don't know why we think of each other in that fashion, to say, if I only need a nurse if I'm really sick, I will only go to the GP if I'm really sick, I will only need a lawyer if I'm going to the jail.
Yeah.
Take advantage of your own people who are specialists in certain areas, and get information, plan your things in an orderly way, where you can find yourself being very well set up in terms of your protection here.
Yeah. And I just wanted to say something there, that you were mentioning about breadwinners, and I think one of the things, especially here in the UK, maybe the reason why there seems to be a problem across the board with men taking these policies is maybe that's the income, the balance has changed. There's a shift, isn't it? That women are, a lot of the times, they are breadwinners. And so they deal with the protection side of it. But just as you were talking, one of the things that struck me was, sometimes maybe when you're alive, you wouldn't be able to provide for your family as much as you would when you are gone. Because there could be a case where the wife is earning a lot more than the husband. But if the husband is well protected, it could end up in a situation where his wife and children are better off. Not better off in a way.
No, find men who will be worried if they feel that the insurance is a bit high. You start to hear people talking that I may be killed for the money.
That's
which is not always the case or always true, because if you are in a situation, because insurance by its nature, it creates some bit of issues of moral hazards, or that's why there's what is called insurable interest. Insurable interest is where the regulator or the insurance would say you can only insure certain people. You can't willy-nilly insure people, because the risk it creates is that if I know Rumbi and I just say I know Rumbi, I know a date of birth, I know a address, then I take 500 insurance on a life. I can then arrange for Rumbi to be killed so that I pocket the 500. So insurance does not allow then people to insure anyone. The only person you are allowed to insure, if it's just for family protection, would be your spouse.
Okay.
So the fact that the regulator allows you to insure your spouse, it means the issue of insurable interest is there. There's insurable interest in your spouse. So you wouldn't kill your spouse for any amount of money. That's why you are allowed to insure them. So, but also if you are worried that the spouse may kill you, then insure yourself on a joint policy.
Okay.
Where if you are covered for 500,000, you are both covered for 500,000. If you are covered for 100,000, you are both covered for 100,000.
So then it's easy.
So that you are just what you earn may not necessarily be a factor, but because even if someone is earning higher than you in a marriage situation, doesn't mean that because you are earning more, you are entitled to more. At the end of the day, it's a marriage, and you end up with 50-50 partners in your assets anyway. So if you insure yourself for 500, insure your wife for 500, or just do a joint policy where you're both covered on the same policy. So the moral hazard that comes with insurance, also issues of money laundering that may come with the insurance. That's why you find the regulator saying, okay, because of the insurable interest, you can only cover someone for your spouse. So I don't think anyone will be killed for the money. So please, guys, take insurance. Don't worry, your wives will never kill you for insurance.
It's that fear, isn't it? That's one of the things, the fear, and then maybe just the thinking that it's expensive, and you like what you're saying, that people think that they are invincible, so they think, you know what?
Yeah, I think there's quite a lot of issues that arise with insurance generally, because a lot of people you're insuring for. If it's not an insurance, which is a whole of life. The whole of life policy is a policy which is more like the diaspora funeral cash plan, the funeral policy we do. A whole of life policy basically says you are covered for the rest of your life. Even if you are blessed with longevity to see your 100s, you will still be on the policy, and the policy will still pay out. Yeah. So but those insurances, because they've got a guaranteed liability on the part of the insurer to say whatever happens, you are going to have to pay this 100,000. Because even if they die at 100, you still have to pay. They tend to be very expensive, those kind of insurance which are whole of life. But what you find most people insured on is term assurance, which is for a given period, and they tend to be very cheap. So there's almost no excuse to say I can't afford a life insurance or I can't afford a funeral policy. Sometimes you will find that it's just the fear of planning, it's just this thinking that no, it will not happen to me. It will happen next door, and in our family we are blessed with long lives. So yeah, there's no guarantee. The reality of the matter is that death can happen to anyone anytime. No one is promised tomorrow. So death can happen to anyone anytime, and you may think that death will happen next door, and you go and pay them condolence, give them £5. One day next door will be your door. Before you realize the claim is happening in your own family, and you find yourself in a very, very awkward situation where there's no money. So there's no whatever excuse someone may have as far as taking insurance is concerned. I can tell you now, in your face, in your eye, that excuse is not more important than having the insurance. That excuse is not more important than having insurance. Whether it's a life insurance, whether it's a funeral policy, you need the insurance. You need the insurance, and it's for your family protection, it's for your own dignity protection, and I've seen it working. I was talking to one client just this week. They had a diaspora funeral cash plan with ourselves, and unfortunately, he lost his wife, and they ended up getting paid a big lump sum for the send off, and also it turned out they did all the other things like life insurance in place and everything. So in the end, they got paid, and you can easily see situations where people are breaking the chain of poverty, where you can start to say the mortgage is paid off, everything is paid off. Your children won't have to struggle with university fees and things like that just because of a small premium someone could have been paying on an insurance policy.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, that's really true. And
yeah.
you talked about your cash plan. So
The Diaspora Funeral Cash Plan.
How does that work for people who, before, I know a lot of people would say we want to get buried in Zimbabwe, but now, like what's happened with COVID, people have to, some are being cremated, some are being buried here. So how does that work? How does that cover?
Yeah, but before I start, I elaborate on how the Diaspora Funeral Cash Plan works. I would want to say that especially there's a misconception that happens with most, especially professionals. There's a misconception that they think a life cover is a funeral policy. A life cover is not a funeral policy. Remember this. A life cover is not a funeral policy. A life cover is not a funeral policy mainly for two reasons. The first reason is that most people who have got life covers, I talked about whole of life, those policies which are very, very expensive, and hardly people take those whole of life policies because they're extremely expensive. Most people who have got life cover, I want to challenge the viewers now to say, if you've got a life cover, pull up your life cover, not immediately, but at some point, and check when does it start, when does it end. Most people who have got life covers, they are term assurance. You are covering yourself for a given period. We are covering yourself for a given period. Most people tend to take their life cover to coincide with their mortgage because they were advised by the mortgage advisor when they took their life cover to say take a life cover as if it was mandatory to taking the mortgage. It's actually not mandatory, but you were encouraged and it was part of the transaction at that point.
Yes.
But all the same, most people tend to have a life cover which are term. They are term for a reason, not because the insurance wants to cheat you. They are term for a reason. They are term mainly because the reason for taking a life cover is one, like we said, income replacement. For how long, as a breadwinner, do you have financial dependence? How old is your youngest child? For how long are they going to be financially dependent on you? That's a factor in considering for how long should I have my life cover. If my youngest is 5 years and I say, okay, at 25 or 30, they will be financially independent, then I will need a life cover to protect them until they are financially independent. So I will take a life cover to line with that. If my mortgage is 25 years and I say if I die during the course of my mortgage, I want it to pay it off, I will take a life cover that runs concurrent with my mortgage. So if my mortgage is for 20 years, I take a life cover for 20 years. As my mortgage years go down, 15 years, 10 years, my life cover, if it's decreasing term, same with the insurance, it's also going down in term and also in the cover value. Although you can leave it as level, you can also take it as a decreasing cover. So the reason why your life cover is not a funeral policy is one, it's term. When you look at the term as to when does your life cover finish, then what I want to challenge you to do is UK life expectancy for women is 83. Life expectancy for men in the UK and in most developed countries 79, 80. So on average, about UK life expectancy, America, most of these first world countries, life expectancy on average is about 80, 81. Check your life cover and tell me that your life cover will still be there by the time if you are blessed with longevity, by the time you hit the life expectancy, your life cover will have expired a long time ago. In most cases. What it means is if you are blessed with longevity, by the time you die, your life cover is gone. If you're at 75 or at 70, you start trying to get a life cover. That's where you find yourself being rejected because you are now older. You have started showing some cracks. We all grow towards the certainty of dying at some point. You now have cancer, you've got stroke, you've got all these diseases that may be happening with old age. So you don't qualify for any new life cover.
Okay.
So you find someone who took their 20 year or 25-year life cover at 40. At 65, the life cover expires. You try to renew, you can't qualify because of the new medical conditions that you may be having. So the reason why I say the life cover is not necessarily a funeral policy is that in most cases, it may expire before you expire. The second reason why a life cover is not a funeral policy is that most situations, in fact, almost all life covers are medically tested. There's medical underwriting on application, then there's medical underwriting on claim. What that means is that if I take a life cover today, I can go online or call in an advisor, do my life cover for 100,000, 200,000, 500,000, and I can declare that my height is so much, my weight is this. In our family, we've got no history of medical conditions like cancer, stroke, heart attack, what you name it. And myself, I don't have any conditions. I've never been to hospital for investigations. I can declare a clean sheet and I'll get my life cover approved without any conditions immediately. It doesn't mean that when I die, if I were to be blessed with another 20 years, 30 years, and I die, the insurance company will just pull up a checkbook and write a 200,000 check. They will do medical underwriting on claim.
So what does that mean?
That means they will start to contact your GP, they contact your hospital, they want to see they want your medical history, they want your cause of death. They want to, so they are just basically looking for things like when you declared that you have got no medical conditions, no bad medical history, and everything was squeak clean. Was that corresponding with your information at the GP? If there are discrepancies that I declare that in our family there's no history of cancer, no history of heart attack, no history of all these major diseases, then it turns out that in 20 years' time I die of cancer. The insurer, when they check my GP files, all what they are looking for is situations where when you went to the GP because you were being suspected of cancer, you'd started to think that, oh, by the way, Dad died of cancer in 1999. And you took your policy in 2005 and declared that there's no history of cancer. But then when we were desperate at the GP, you declared the correct information. The insurer will say, okay, fine. If Dad died of cancer in 1999, why did you not declare it in 2005? So you lied. That is called significant non-disclosure.
Yes.
And that can invalidate your life cover. In which case, the insurer at best will refund you your premiums. So those things will happen. But then there's another element that a lot of people may find it to be quite misleading in a way, where people may think that their life cover is a funeral policy because the life cover is coming with a sweetener. It's coming with a sweetener to say if you die, we'll pay out 5,000 immediately without any investigations. So there will be money for funeral.
Okay.
What that does not address the fact that a life cover is not a funeral policy, because when your life cover expires, that sweetener will also expire. So I know some policies which are done here in the UK, which will cover you until the age of 65. It's got everything, all the sweeteners, an element of funeral, an element of hospitalization, an element of life cover. But the moment you hit 65, when you get it in the afternoons of your life, when you need it most, it expires.
It expires.
And when it expires, the hospitalization is gone. The funeral element on that life cover is also gone. So that's another thing that people need to watch out when you say, my life cover is so good and it's got everything. It's got a funeral element. Remember, when that life cover expires, when you turn 60 or 65, everything is expiring.
So what's the best time then to get the life cover, or what's the best type to get?
I think the issue about it, the issue here is about distinction between a life cover and a funeral policy. A funeral policy and a life cover are not competing products. They are complementary products. You need both.
Okay.
You need both. If you have got an element of funeral insurance on your life cover, just be worried that when your life cover expires, that element will also expire. And I've had a lot of situations where people, clients think that, no, I don't need a life cover, or I don't need a funeral insurance because my employer will deal with it. At my work, we are given 4 times annual salary if I die at work, and the employer will also pay out so much money for funeral and things like that. Let me say, it's not enough to rely on employer provided benefits when it comes to family protection. Why? Because your employer provided benefits are as good as your employment goes.
Yes.
I will not miss an opportunity if I get a very lucrative job in the Middle East or in Australia or somewhere else. I will not miss an opportunity to relocate and enjoy good money and good sunshine because I'm keeping my job because there's a good life cover. Or because the employer will bury me. So you find a lot of people who end up in these situations where you find yourself now self-employed. You start your own operation, your own agency, or relocate to another, or move to another job. And all those perks that you have been relying on as a family protection for all this time, you leave them with the previous employer. So the point is that employer provided benefits should be additional to your own arrangement. Yeah. So remember the two things we said: life cover and funeral insurance are different in that life cover expires. Life cover is medically tested, therefore does not pay in time for the funeral in most cases. Yeah. So those are some of the things that people need to be reminded of. I see as one of the listeners there is talking about NHS death in service and critical illness cover. How many people have left NHS employment to start their own agents, or to go agents, or to work as a self-employed, or to go into private hospital? So that's why I'm saying you don't rely on employer provided. It should come as an additional to your own arrangement. Yeah, right. In talking about the diaspora funeral cash plan, it's what we do as a diaspora funeral cash plan is a very simple policy. Really the simplest of policies. It comes. Diaspora funeral cash plan is provided by Diaspora Insurance, and we are regulated by the FCA here. And by that, it means all our clients are also protected like another UK financial product, bank account, insurance through the financial compensation scheme. We are also regulated in South Africa through the South Africa regulator, which is the Financial Conduct, the Financial Sector Conduct Authority. UK is the Financial Conduct Authority, FCA. South Africa is Financial Sector Conduct Authority. So it's quite close. I don't know who was copying who. But so we are regulated in both markets. We've got a very big call center in Birmingham here. In the UK, we also have a big call center in South Africa with all the capacity. So support is available. We are a very big operation, and our cover is also underwritten by big international insurance and reinsuring into one of the world's biggest reinsurance companies, Munich Re. So it's a very, very strong cover. But the way the cover is structured, it's bespoke. We always mention the word bespoke when we talk of diaspora funeral cash plan, because it speaks to the need that it seeks to address. It's tailor-made to make sure that it's tailor-made to give the best in terms of addressing the need. The need is to guarantee every one of our clients that if you are covered on our policy, you can guarantee yourself a dignified send-off. So we say a dignified send-off guaranteed, peace of mind guaranteed, because our cover is structured in a manner that within 24 hours of providing proof of death, the settlement is done. The settlement is done. When the family is briefed and they provide proof of death, they indicate on their own policy how they want us to pay them. If they want us to pay them into a US dollar, into a US account, we pay them into a US account. If they want to be paid into a UK bank account, we pay them into a UK bank account. If they want to be paid into a South African rand account, we pay them in South Africa rand account. Situations will arise where people may request to be settled through money transfer, to say remit the money through platforms like money transfer. We will settle in any way that is convenient to the family. Yeah, so that's it. So it's structured as a guaranteed acceptance policy. No medicals on application, no medicals on claim. The element of no medicals means that in the event of a claim, we don't need to start wasting time writing your GP asking to know the cause of death, your medical history. We don't need that information. All we need is proof of death, and through that proof of death, we settle within 24 hours. And during this very COVID pandemic, we've had to settle tens of thousands in terms of claims. Within 3 hours, 4 hours, families have got their monies in their accounts.
Wow.
That's how quickly we work, because the idea is to just guarantee financial immediate intervention at the point of need. Yeah, you're going to say something before I elaborate.
How much are your do you have, like, for how much is it that people would get for your standard cover, or do you have different amounts?
We've got recommended cover amounts. Our responsibility, it's part of the treating customers fairly responsibility that we have. That we advise people on why you need a cover like this, how does it work for you, how are you protected as a client. Then in terms of the cover amounts, we then recommend to say someone in the UK, if you are 50 and above or so, we would recommend to say you have at least 10,000 cover. The maximum we allow anyone globally to cover for on our policy is 20,000. 20,000, yeah. So you can cover for 20,000 max, and you can cover for lower, but we then recommend to say go for 10 for in these markets. If you are young, assume longevity, factor in time value of money, cover for so much. We then recommend and then say, okay, fine, we've recommended everything. That's when you are doing recommendations, you are talking about suitability of the cover, and recommending the cover amounts, but then you are talking about the ideal situation. Ideal means that under normal circumstances, everything else permitting, that's what you would go for.
Okay.
But the reality then kicks in. That's when we talk of affordability. Yeah, can I afford a 20,000 cover for myself, my wife, my 3 kids as a family? 20,000 each, that's 100,000. Can I afford the premium? We then we factor that into account. We take that into account, that your budget, can you afford to do this? Then people can say, okay, ideally I would have loved to have 15,000 or 20,000, but what I can afford for now is maybe 10,000.
Okay.
Yeah, so people can choose the cover amount. A worst case scenario, we have said this several times, worst case scenario, it's better to have a small cover than to have no cover.
Yeah.
Small cover is always better than no cover. I have said this, if a funeral happens and there's no money, completely no money, and you are begging the pastor to tell the people that please help the situation here, money will not come. Rivers don't flow to the desert. Rivers flow to the sea, not because there's no water. Where money is, it invites money. So please have a starting point.
Yeah.
Don't get yourself in a situation where you're completely reduced into a beggar.
Yeah.
It's traumatic enough to lose someone you love.
Yeah.
But don't compound it by being a beggar at the very same point. It becomes double tragedy. Yeah.
It does.
So we were saying it. So the reason probably is people may wonder, why do we pay this on the diaspora funeral cash plan? Why do we do it as a cash policy rather than just giving the service and say, if you die, we'll do this for you, we'll do this for you, we'll do this for you? That's the traditional way of doing funeral insurance. it was the traditional way of doing funeral insurance, where people provided goods and services. Nothing against it, but the reality of the matter is that when those policies were structured, it's in the olden days, and there were factors that were considered. Mainly, it was because people were largely stationed in, say, living locally, and maybe dying locally and getting buried locally. People were quite localized in their lives. So it made sense for someone who is born in Harare or in Joburg, South Africa, who lives in Accra, Ghana, and you know most of your life you are going to be there, or if at the best maybe you will be buried in the rural areas in the same country. So it's good to have a cover that he says, if you die locally and you are going to be buried locally, we'll just provide you the service and make sure that the funeral is done. Equally, someone who is a Londoner who lives in London and you die locally in London or in UK, the funeral director can pick up and do the process of burial. End of story. But our reality is different from our ancestors. We are now transnational. We are now, most of us are now transnational. We are people who belong to more than one nation. We belong to more than one society. And we need a policy that has got that flexibility to say, yes, I'm talking right now in the UK. If I find an opportunity, I may find myself in Australia. I may find myself, if the lockdown is over, I may find myself on holiday in Greece. I may find myself retired living with one of my children in Florida. My son is quite keen on the USA, so by the time I retire, maybe I will be living with my son in the USA. He says we'll go when he turns 14, so I don't know whether he will be able to look after me. But the point really is, the reason for cash cover is simply that cash knows no border. Cash knows no border. Therefore, you can use the same policy for any eventuality wherever you are in the world. Over the time, your location is not fixed. Like I said, we are transnational. Over the time, your preferences are not fixed.
That's true.
Your choice to say, I want to be laid to rest, or I want to be cremated, or I want to be buried abroad, or I want to be taken back home to the village, those choices are not fixed.
Yeah.
And the longer, if you are blessed with long life, you find that the choices will not change because you want to. Sometimes it's a default position. Where you find that back in your rural area where you were dreaming of being buried there, all the people who matter to you are no longer there. The parents are no longer there. The brothers are no longer there. Second, third generation is there now. And you are now in your afternoons in the 80s, 90s, if you are blessed with a long life. You don't want to be caught in a situation in your 80s to realize that, oh my God, since I was 40, I was paying for a policy to be taken to be buried abroad. Now in my 80s, 90s, I'm no longer going to be taken abroad because it doesn't make sense anymore. My children are here, grandchildren are here, and they are being buried. So it will mean that you just donated money all this time.
And you can't use it,
Yeah, you can't use it. But with the cash policy, what we are simply saying is, if it's 10,000, use the same 10,000 to be taken home if it happens that you die when you still want to be taken home. If your situation changes and you want to be buried abroad, use the same 10,000. If your perception of things changes and you now want cremation, use the same 10,000 for cremation. And if you relocate out of territory to another country in the world, use the same policy, because the cash knows no border. Therefore, your policy automatically becomes a worldwide protection without borders. That is the policy that suits someone who is transnational.
And I think you answered somebody who had asked above, I think Faith Mawarire, she had asked that, do you provide for a UK diaspora resident to Sierra Leone, UK, the insurance for someone who is in Sierra Leone?
Is it someone who is there are countries that we cover. We are widening the scope as we grow. We are now covering 13 countries. Anyone originally from I would try and put them in alphabetical order: Botswana, We've got anyone from Ethiopia.
Yeah.
We've got anyone from Mozambique. We've got anyone from Malawi, Ghana, Zambia, Zimbabwe, South Africa, Eswatini, anyone from Eswatini, that's Swaziland, they changed the name to Eswatini. East Africa, we do cover anyone from Kenya, Uganda, we do cover anyone from Tanzania. So we do cover quite a lot of countries. So these countries are nationalities from these countries we are covering. We are opening up more countries and as we go along. But at the moment we are covering these 13 nationalities. So but if someone is in a situation where you are from one of these nationalities and you are married to someone from Sierra Leone, or you are a Zimbabwean, you are married to a Nigerian, we've got so many situations like that where we are covering the Nigerian through marriage.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if it's a British citizen who's just born here, it doesn't cover them. It's only for those nationalities.
If you are any of those nationality by descent or by marriage or by another, we do cover.
Okay.
But at some point we'll be opening up to say anyone, any British, any American, anyone who needs the cover will be covering. But we are widening our offering as we go along.
I've just got a question for you. There's Zanie who's asked, can I have cash funeral cover and any other funeral policy which offer funeral services? So I suppose that's two.
Yeah, it's fine. You can do that. You can do that. We are not advocates of saying people should cancel their policies, but you always have to take into account the long-term suitability of your policy. That's what is important. Because I've said this before, it's about planning. And planning is nothing but bringing the future into the present and say, okay, fine, this happens, this happens, this happens. Where does my policy leave me?
Yeah.
So the straight answer is yes, you can have a cash policy and another policy which provides you goods and services. Yes, you can do that, but always in terms of your long-term planning, think long-term to say, where does my policy leave me? If you create a scenario in the future where your current policy lives in a situation where you find yourself you are on your own, it means that that policy is structured to benefit the policy provider, not you.
Yeah.
A policy should not benefit you because you are still compliant in terms of what the policy does for you. That kind of rigidity on a policy ultimately invalidates the policy against you. Yeah, you don't want to be covered on a policy that guarantees you that if you die, we will take you to Ghana, or if you die, we will take you to Zimbabwe, and we will do this for you, do this for you, do this for you. But what if I do? If situations change?
Like now,
I'm no longer in the UK. I've relocated out of the UK. Are you going to take me from Australia to Zimbabwe? Are you going to take me from West Indies on holiday to Zimbabwe? The situations will change. Then, of course, the pandemic that we are undergoing now, the families that were ready to deal with, they were thinking that they will be taken to Zimbabwe, but things have had to change very quickly. Where you find yourself, you were hoping that if God forbid something happens in my golden years, in my afternoons, I will be taken to Zimbabwe, related to. Then a COVID pandemic like this happens. You find yourself, you can't repatriate in as much as you want.
Yeah.
So people then change to say, okay, we are doing the burial in the UK.
Yeah.
That's the versatility and the flexibility you want on a policy. Yeah. That you can just switch the same policy, you then use it for your burial in the UK. And you can do the same situations where some people may choose to say, okay, fine, we've got the cash, to just do the cremation will cost thousands. And you do the cremation, then after the lockdown, you can decide to say, we are now traveling to do our final send-off in Zimbabwe. You've got the cash, you've got that flexibility. But if you are locked in a very, very rigid setup, be worried about what it will do for you in the future. But in the meantime, if you want to keep both, you can keep both, and you know that the cash will always be handy anyway. If it happens that it happens while you've got both, you use the other policy for your burial, and you've got another 10,000 for the family. It can be part of the inheritance you are giving to your children or your parents or whoever. But you would never, I can guarantee you, you will never go wrong with a cash policy because it can cater for any eventuality.
Isn't it? Yeah.
I think one time one client says, okay, if a situation can arise, you are flying, the plane crashes, you can't even find the body, and your police was guaranteeing you to be to be given a coffin, to be given this trans type of bus, or to be given this and that, and there's no body. Who do you give the coffin to?
And I think this COVID has shown us so much about just, we can plan, we can have hopes, but sometimes things just change, like what happened now.
Yeah, things change quite dramatically and quite unexpectedly as well. Yeah. So.
Yeah.
But like I said, with the cash cover, we simply do it as a cash because the cash knows no border. Your policy becomes a transnational policy. It becomes a worldwide protection, and you can use the money for anything anywhere in the world. Besides, also with the cash cover, what it helps with is a funeral is not necessarily about the coffin and the provision of transport to the cemetery and other bits like that for the funeral itself. Ultimately, the funeral will cost a lot more things, like if it wasn't for the lockdown, things like family travel, church service, flowers, photography, you want to do videography for memories. Beyond the funeral, soon after you do the burial, the first family meeting you do, you are planning memorial. Who is going to pay for the memorial?
Yeah.
And you are planning for tombstone. Who is going to pay for the tombstone? So with the cash cover, again, when you've got a good cash cover, it means you can cater for all these costs. And once you provide for all those costs, all other things like shipping of the personal effects of the deceased, things like the memorial, planning the tombstone, it will be very sad because most of us, especially diasporans, we are caught in situations where we are the breadwinners for the clan back home. To think that if you die yourself and the burial is done and you end up with a situation where someone back home will raise money for your tombstone, it may not happen. Yeah. It may not happen because you were the cash cow for the whole village. So you then want to be able to use the same policy to say can cover for other things like memorial, like the tombstone itself. Yeah. So that's why we say cash cover will always be good because it provides to cover all the other related expenses. And also, what you will find sadly in most diaspora situations, because people take policies without thinking much about the future, without thinking that what does my situation entail. You would find someone who is in their 40s, 50s in the diaspora with a policy which says, when I die, my policy will take me to Zim and will be given this. When I die, my policy will take me to South Africa, will take me to Ghana, will do this. And their children who are as young as 1, 2, 3, 10, they are on the same policy. Yes, we as first generation migrants, we may have this emotional fixation about being taken home. What about our children? Why are you wasting money paying for a policy for your children to be buried in Zimbabwe in 900 years' time? Do you think they will go to the village to be buried like you?
No.
So all you simply want is a policy that will cater for you, will cater for your children as well.
Yeah.
So it's important that those things are very, very important.
Very. No, that's been so helpful and so insightful, and given us so much to think about. I think, and I think the clarity as well, just the flexibility of the cash plan, and also the difference in what you said about that
life cover and the funeral policies
that could leave many people vulnerable at the time when they really need that funeral policy. So that's really good.
I think it's about supporting each other as a community where we've got people in different areas of specialty. Let's come in, discuss things, enlighten each other so that we educate each other. I'm not forcing anyone to say ultimately take a diaspora funeral cash plan policy. Yes, it's the best on the market, but it may not be the cup of tea for everyone. Yes, it's human nature. But what I'm simply saying is we as advisors, financial advisors in the market, we've got also a responsibility to educate each other.
That's true.
I've done life insurance, is critical illness insurance, is income protection insurance, is mortgages in the UK for decades. And it's knowledge that I can die with. It's knowledge that I can share with people to say, do this, do this, do this. It's for your benefit.
Yeah.
When you come to pass, your spouse should cry with hope. Should cry with hope, not to go to a funeral where you don't know whether the widow or the widower is crying because they've lost someone, or they are crying because there's no money. Let's protect ourselves and break this chain of poverty. Because with the correct policy, you find that you are creating intergenerational financial security. It's not just about yourself. If I take a policy now and I protect it, I always use my son as an example, advising clients to say, my little boy, I took cover for him the day he was born. And that cover for him, the day he turns 20, the cover, the way it's structured now, the cover becomes free. So at 20, I'm giving him a gift of life for 20,000 as a policy. You will never have to have the conversation to plan about end of life expenses. In his 40s, 50s, who say, Dad, you took a policy for me the day I was born.
Yeah, that's really good.
And that's intergenerational financial security. Intergenerational financial security. When if he's blessed to see long life, 80, 90, and he comes to pass and people are saying, the grandpa we are burying here today, the police burying him was taken by his father the day he was born. People will say, especially in our Zimbabwe culture, people say, this guy was really a cool dude, or he was Muveti. We say he was like a Muveti, like a Murungu guy in terms of planning. But that's what we are simply saying to people, saying, think long term, break the chain of poverty, think intergenerational financial security. Talk to your financial advisor and say, okay, fine, I've got this. How does it work when it comes to these things, so that we help each other? Equally, when I'm sick and I go to the doctor, I'm not going to tell the doctor to say, oh, it's because I've got a headache, so inject me in the head. They will inject me on the arm. They know where best to inject me. So that's the thing, So that's the thing. So it's about educating and supporting each other as a community. We are able to do these discussions.
We do.
Yeah.
No, it's wonderful, and I think if there's also your contact details are there. I know there's someone who's posted them, and where you can get an online quote. There's website there.
Yeah, we've got our website. People can go on our website. We've got the website for the company, diasporainsurance.com. Or people can go on the product website page, which is diasporafuneralcashplan.com. Yeah. If you've got any challenges, we're updating our systems. If you've got any challenges, simply contact the office. We'll take over and make sure that before you leave the phone, you are covered. And you don't have to pay anything on our policy to get your cover started. We'll get your cover started. You choose your payment, your preferred payment date, and we get running.
Yeah, wonderful. Yeah. Somebody asked as well that if they join up today, how many payments do they have to make?
How many payments before they qualify for payout?
Yeah, before they qualify for payout.
Yeah, it's a good question, and it's something that we would address always when we are doing advisory as part of the treating customers fairly. We answer in our treating customers fairly engagement on advisory. We try and make sure that all the frequent asked questions are answered before they are asked. As part of the education, say this is how things work. But normally with the insurance policies that pay out cash and don't do medicals, they always run a risk that someone may go to the GP, get told that you are terminally ill, sorry, 1 month to live, then they come and take the cover. When they do that, they are covering a certainty, and that's no longer insurance.
Yeah.
Yeah. So how does the insurance, if it doesn't do medicals, deal with that?
Mm-hmm.
They do deal with that through what is called a qualifying or waiting period.
Okay.
And globally, a qualifying or waiting period on an insurance product that does not do medicals is normally 24 months. That's the normal waiting period.
Mm-hmm.
And you see that with even in medical insurance, where someone can take a medical insurance and you don't just take medical insurance today, tomorrow you go to the operation, they will tell you, no, you have to wait for a given period to qualify for the benefits. So normally it's 24 months. But luckily, remember, on the Diaspora Funeral Cash Plan, you don't have to wait for 24 months to qualify for your benefits.
Mm-hmm.
Immediately you set up your policy, will give you full cover from day one. The moment you finish setting up, you are covered for the full cover if death happens due to an accident. The question is, why do we qualify to say an accident? It's because it's beyond your control.
Mm-hmm.
It can happen to anyone, anytime. So we say we'll pay you immediately if death is accidental.
Mm-hmm.
But if death happens due to natural illness, that's where the issue of waiting period kicks in.
Okay.
Yeah, it kicks in. So if death happens due to natural illness, instead of waiting the normal 24 months, which is the global standard, on the Diaspora Funeral Cash Plan, you only wait for 3 months.
Okay.
And after 3 months, we start to pay out. But on a sliding scale, after 3 months, you qualify for 2,500. After 6 months, you qualify for 5,000. Then after 12 months, the full cover amount, even if you are on 20.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's just a sliding scale. The idea of doing the sliding scale is to help communities so that as soon as at the earliest opportunity, once you are covered, you are on full cover for accidental, for natural death, as short as 3 months, you are starting to accrue the benefits as well.
Okay.
And in most cases, 3 months, no one would have paid anywhere near what they will benefit. So it's just about supporting the community and treating people fairly as well.
Yeah. No, that's great. That's excellent. No, that's wonderful. I think it's been really helpful. We've got some really positive comments and some feedback in terms of if people need to get in touch with you, they can take out. There's no excuse because you can have a small one, like you said, or a larger one, but there's no excuse, and it's better to have something than to have no cover. So, so that's great. So thank you so much, Jeff, for your time, and thank you for just educating us. I'm learning so much. This whole week, the last week as we were doing all these, every day there's something new that I'm learning because it's not my field. I've got my own field, but in everything from the experts you learn. And I just encourage people that, you know what, there's no one who's going to sit with you and sit and explain to you what works for you as much as someone who understands your background. So you know the challenges, you know what it's like to be a transnational global citizen. And so this cash plan has been made with us in mind because of the flexibility of the life that we live. So I would encourage people just to, find out. No one is forcing you, but it's an option, and we've been empowered to be able to make those choices. So that's the important thing for us all. So so if you have any parting words, I think we've gone over our time.
Yeah, we just wanted to thank the listeners for tuning in, and also to make people aware that we are open from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m.
Okay.
So 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. we are open, and you can call through our office numbers. If you are feeling lazy, just send a WhatsApp and say, get in touch. I'm interested to know more, or I want a policy. We will come back to you and we will support you. Look at your options and get your cover. But otherwise, we are going through a very trying time, and again, we want to take this opportunity to convey our deepest condolences to people who have lost their loved ones in the COVID virus pandemic, and also wish anyone who is bedridden a quick recovery. And we hope we'll be through this terrible time soon and back to normal lives. So again, we are stronger together as a community. So please, let's stick together and support each other, especially during these difficult times. Check on your friends. How are they doing? And help the need. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank
you, and stay safe.
Thank you, everyone. Bye for now.
Bye.
Thank you.